Please take note that all council members are here with the exception of Ms. Scott. Therefore, we have a quorum, and I will begin the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As always, we welcome our citizens here tonight who have come to participate in our proceedings. And you're also welcome to speak at the appropriate time if you have anything to address council. With that, we'll go into announcements and reminders. I think, Mr. Garza, you have some announcements.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I do have 5 announcements for you today, and so that should keep us here till 6. So our first announcement is I want to quickly recognize one of our communication public affairs employees, Michael Riffle. This is his last council meeting. He'll be moving on to focusing as a freelance videographer, and he's been instrumental in helping us further advance our communications operation. You may recall that him and Josh even received an award and a recognition not too long ago. And so we thank him for his service with us. I believe he was with us for a little less than 2 years. And so, right? Sweet. So thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And if you notice, there's somebody else with headphones standing in front of the monitors over there, and that's George Partida, who's our new multimedia specialist. And George is actually an internal promotion, and I want to very quickly highlight this because I think it's important that we as an organization continue to push for this. So he's going from being a frontline operator with our right-of-way crew from being literally frontline employee to being a professional employee with us in the communications department. He kept it a secret that he had the skill set. So once people found out about it, now he's here today. And so, George, congratulations on your promotion. And speaking of promotions, I do want to very quickly also mention our promotion of Ken Gill to our officially becoming our Public Works Director / City Engineer. As many of you know, he's been serving as interim Public Works Director for a couple of months now. And so recently, literally yesterday, we made that announcement. And so Ken, congratulations. Okay, that's all for personnel-related items. I do have a quick update from Municipal Court. Municipal Court has scheduled additional open court dates for February to give residents with past due citations or outstanding warrants a chance to resolve their cases without being arrested for city warrants. The open court dockets for February will be Monday, February 24th at 1 p.m. and Saturday, February 29th at 9 a.m. The court is offering an open court session on a Saturday so that more residents will have the opportunity to be seen by the judge. And so hopefully our residents take advantage of that. And we're putting out press releases and putting it out on social media as well, so our residents know that that opportunity is available to them. Lastly, I do want to communicate to council and the public that we will be having a public meeting on Wednesday, March 4th at UHV at 5:30 p.m. This is related to the Ben Wilson Corridor project. You may recall that when we awarded that design contract to Friesen Nichols, we committed to keeping the public as updated and as involved in the process as possible. And so this meeting will coincide with a trip that Friesen Nichols is making for a kickoff meeting that we'll have internally with stakeholders. But publicly, we want to provide an opportunity for surrounding stakeholders, or quite frankly, just anybody who's interested in the project, to come learn about the project and ask any questions that they might have. And shortly, staff, over the next week or so, staff will work with Ash's team to kind of put some of that information out. And that is all I got.
Okay. I'm not aware of any public or employee recognitions tonight, so we'll move on to items from council. Are there any items from council?
I have one. I had asked that we look into an ordinance on dog and cats last meeting. I want to expand that a little bit more. I had a complaint this morning. If we could expand it to not only the cats and the cats in particular. There is no city ordinance at the time for cats, stray cats to be picked up. I have a constituent that called, said he's caught a cat, he takes it to the adoption center, and he says the cats, the cats that run around, they have fleas and, he's always having to, clean his front yard because there's so many cats around there. So if we could expand that, because he said that's a health issue with the fleas and everything else that the cats are leaving around. So if we could expand on that particular ordinance or something to look into.
Sure. I did have a conversation with the health director.
Yes.
And they have been undertaking a review of all the animal-related ordinances, and so he envisions wrapping that up soon. You
Okay.
may or may not be aware that they're in the process of hiring a new animal control manager, or I forget what he calls it, but his head animal control person.
Okay.
And so as soon as he's done with that, he expects to come to council and make a recommendation himself that addresses some of the issues you brought up, but then also a bunch of other issues that they've identified need.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items from council? Hearing none, we'll move on to citizens' communication. I would ask that any citizen that wants to speak to item C1, which is a public hearing, reserve your comments until that time. So if there's any other citizen comments, please step forward. Seeing none, I'll close citizen communication. Will you take us on into the agenda?
Sure. Item C1 is to amend the fiscal year 2019-20 budget to provide funding for the Airline Road Waterline and Reconstruction Project.
Moves, oh, you got a public hearing, I'm sorry.
Is there a presentation on this?
Yes. We can go into the presentation first.
Yeah, I'd like to see the presentations in case any citizen is here that would like, it's good that they see the presentation. Right.
Okay, briefly, this project got initiated because of the water breaks that we had, a lot of water breaks on Airline, and it's replacing the Vine Street Rehab Overlay Project. It was in the original half-cent sales tax, the Sales Tax Development Board. And I'm going to skip through those because that's about Vine Street. The Airline project is between Laurent and Navarro. And it's currently street rating of about 88. Total measurement is 2,600 linear feet. The water line, it's a 16-inch water line that was put in 50, 60 years ago. And it's shallow, relatively shallow, 5 feet deep. And it's had 5 water breaks since 2015 and 3 since 2019. So it's had some pretty large breaks that have had a lot of street repairs to it. They're longitudinal, they're not circular breaks, so that means it's a 20-foot long break, a lot of pavement repair. The last time that street was reclaimed was in 2004. The proposed project cost for replacing the 16-inch water line is $633,558. And then what we would like to do after we redo the water line, replace the water line, tie it into all the side streets, is mill and overlay that street and then new striping. Basically, that'll smooth out the road and completely rebuild that road into a new section. We're looking at, and that cost is $867,650. The bid date, we're looking, if everything goes smooth, is hustling on this project and getting it bid sometime fall this year, and then begin construction in the winter, and then complete construction in 2021. Oh, too fast. This is what a picture of the water line, one of them that broke. As you can see, it's pretty much shot. It's an old cast iron water main. Same picture, different size. And then these are some of the patches that we've done over the course of the water breaks that we've had. And there's another large patch there in front of the old, right by West Outfall. And another one. Oh, too far. And I'll let Wesley take over unless y'all have any questions.
Ken, on that mill and overlay, will that smooth out all those dips?
Yes, that's the purpose of it. Those are the dips are caused a lot from the water break in the settlement of the base around it.
And I think for the public, I think you misspoke, said the rating was 88, but it's actually 83. So
Okay,
I
that's,
just wanted to
that's good.
clarify that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Wesley?
And as Ken had mentioned, there's two parts to this project. There's the utility replacement and then the street mill and overlay. For the utility replacement, that's what we're recommending doing a budget amendment for in the amount of $633,000, which would come from the water wastewater fund fund balance. And the street mill and overlay, which will be on a later item on the agenda, is we're proposing to come out of sales tax. But in the, after end-of-year adjustments in the water fund, our fund balance came in about $1.2 million over just due to construction projects and personnel vacancies. So by amending the budget in this amount, we're not dipping into our 3-month reserve, so let's get there.
Any further reports? Okay, then I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this matter from the public? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
I move to accept item C1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept item C1. I would like to ask one question, though, before the vote. Are we at a position now in our contracting, Mr. Gooser, where we can consider days on these street projects in awarding these contracts?
That project is ongoing and it's currently being managed by the purchasing department, so I'm not sure that I'm prepared to answer that question tonight, but I know that it is part of what is being considered.
Thank you. At some point, I think we would all like to see that happen. Okay. Therefore, is there any other discussion on this matter?
With respect to the days, we will assign the days for that contract during the bidding process when we put the construction plans together.
Good. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign.
That takes us to the consent agenda, and there are 7 items on the consent agenda tonight that will be approved by a single vote. They are first, the adoption of minutes of the February 4th, 2020 council meeting. Second, reappointing members to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Third, amending listing agreements with Griffin Realty Advisors LLC for properties located at 4600 North Ben Jordan Street and 6103 Dairy Road. Fourth, renewal of the employment agreement for the city manager. Fifth, renewal of the employment agreement for the city attorney. Sixth, amending the contract with Doucette and Associates for Guadalupe Riverbank design in the amount of $18,500. And seventh, awarding the contract for the 2019-2020 sanitary sewer line cleaning project to All Points Inspection Services Incorporated for $97,363.
I move we adopt the consent agenda as read.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Item E1 is approving an amendment to the Victoria Sales Tax Development Corporation fiscal year 2019-2020 programs and expenditures.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept item E1. Is there,
It would be the same
Discussion?
presentation as before.
so is there any discussion on this matter?
The only thing that we can add, if we can pull up that presentation, can you just go to the very last slide and talk about the updated fund balance for VSTDC?
Yeah, so the effect of amending the sales tax corporation budget, so deleting Vine Street of $1.3 million and then adding in airline at $800,000 would increase projected ending fund balance by about $517,000. So we're looking at just under $5.8 million in the sales tax fund balance for the end of the year.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this matter? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of item E1, say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Item E2 is awarding a contract for the Guadalupe River erosion repairs to Lester Contracting Incorporated in the amount of $1,006,695.
Couldn't they just make it $1 million at that point?
Move to accept item E2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on item E2. Is there a
I've got a presentation if you would like one, or I can be real brief and just describe the project.
council's pleasure?
The presentation would be nice because the pictures were too small in the. I
Okay.
couldn't really tell which one it was, but
Sure.
I could tell what it
Go ahead,
is. but
Ken.
Okay.
Go over it.
This is I call it a unique project, but it's not in the sense that, and I'll go first project history. The two spots, one of them is at Riverside Park across from the duck pond. It's where the orangenating is. And the other one is at the pump station on the river across the bridge, basically. We worked with Natural Resources Conservation Service, and they're a great group to work with to secure funding for this project. And we've been working with them since October of 2017, and we finally secured their funding in 2018. A lot of that had to do with them securing funding through the federal government. And once we did that, we got some qualifications for engineering through Doucette Engineering, who designed the project. And then we've executed a notice of grant agreement in March of 2019. So we're at the process now where we bid the project and recommending the low bid. Just go through that. The project, this section is along the Guadalupe River, and what they're doing is a unique, but in a sense, it's been around since the 1960s. Instead of hardening it with a concrete wall or putting up sheet piling, the theory is to keep that riverbank, follow the ecology of the river, try to keep that river flowing in its natural state by putting in a large stone along that one section you see right there where it's washed out, and then a large stone along the bottom of the creek. And in doing so, they'll slope it back, and they'll also put in what they call living dikes, which they'll put plantings of willow trees and other trees that will stabilize that bank once the river hits. One thing we noticed is that section where we're putting the rock is the low point. So when the river gets up and floods Riverside, the golf course, that peak of that river during Hurricane Harvey, it went up really fast, and when it came down, it went down. Well, that water from the golf course came out like a bathtub, and it went through that one point where those rocks are, and it just blew a hole in it. So what we're trying to do is stabilize it with some large stone, so when that river does it again, it goes out, across that stone, doesn't wash that hole out.
How do you hold the leading edge?
Excuse me?
How do you stop the underwash from the leading edge?
That's, again, they're gonna slope back, and then they put a rock along that face, along the bottom face. They don't wanna get into, if you get too far down into the river, Corps of Engineers gets a little antsy. You wanna stay above what they call the high water mark, ordinary water mark. So we're trying to do that, but then also they've proven that on these large rivers and streams is use the natural vegetation that you can to get that root, the growth in the root system to hold that shoreline. The next one is along the river pump station, and again, it's similar. We don't have that one large washout, but it's the river's moving over slightly, and in that particular area, it's a very silty, soft sand. So we're gonna bring material in, reshape that bank. We can't slope it back because of the pump station, but fill it in, and then again, put the rock along the bottom and the living dikes and some stream rock, going up the shoreline to slow that water down around that corner. But again, naturally to keep that river so it doesn't just make another washout downstream or upstream. Keep that flow the same, the velocities. We received 3 bids. Lester Contracting out of Port Lavaca for $1 million. Dairy Ample Gravel and Contracting, they're out of they're in Texas. They're 1.26 million. And then ERS out of Vicksburg, and they were at 1.9. All three contractors were very capable. We went through their background, did some checking to be sure that each one had done projects similar to this size. Contract time is 90 days, and a lot of the work totally depends upon the river elevation. We do recommend award to Lester Contracting of Port Lavaca, and NRCS reimburses 90% of the construction and 8.5% of the 90% construction cost for technical assistance. So we're estimating our total cost out of this whole project is $177,000. And if you have any questions, I'll entertain.
Any further questions? Okay, I believe we have a bid and a motion and a second. All those in favor of item E2, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Item E3 is an award contract for the 2020 Rehabilitation and Overlay Project in Woodway 1 and 2 and Bridle Ridge 1 to Brannan Paving Company Limited for $2,984,642.25.
Move to approve item E3.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for item E3. You want to go through your presentation, right?
Sure. This project consists of Woodway Phase 1 and Phase 2. There's 3 total phases to Woodway, and then Bridle Ridge 1, and there's, I think, 2 or 3, at least 3 other phases for Bridle Ridge. Here are the maps. The back portion of Woodway would be done, and then the middle portion of Woodway would be done. And the reason we're doing that is Nursery Road has been rebuilt, so we're trying to limit that traffic on Nursery Drive. And one of the big phases of it is once they rebuild its section in the back, they can move the trucks in and out from the back towards the front. And when we get to that last phase, they don't have to drive over the new streets to work on that phase. So there is a systematic approach to do the back 2 first. And same with Bridle Ridge. We're working on that western section, the southwest section, and again, keep them working where they don't get into the new section when they do the later phases. Project consists of 60,000 square yards of reconstruction. We're doing 8-inch lime stabilized subgrade, a geogrid, limestone base, and then we put a RC 250, which is a prime seal and gets the people right back on that road without having to wait. Then we do a seal coat, then the hot mix, and minor amounts of curb repair and port repairs to be determined. And again, it's a flexible pavement. This would be for both Woodway and Bridle Ridge. Sequence, I know there's been a lot of questions of how to get in and out. First, of course, we'll notify the property owners, and the contractor would excavate approximately 12-inch material in sections. He's not going to do the whole neighborhood at one time. Do it enough where he can excavate the material, place the lime on the subgrade, mixed and compact, and then temporarily put ramps in for those residents that evening. Subgrade has to cure a couple of days, 2 to 3 days. Then they remix that subgrade for the final. And once they meet gradation, which is that same day, then they'll start putting the geogrid and the base on it. That gets the people, again, we try to limit that downtime that they have to be out of their homes. Second lift of limestone base would go in, and you mix that with the first course and compact and cure it, the limestone 3 to 5 days. Then they place the RC 250, which is basically a distributor, puts a sealant on top of that limestone, and then they put a rock on it so you can immediately drive on it and get home. And then they'll do the single course seal, and then the final application would be the hot mix. And typically, they will wait until there's a large section done through the seal coat, because the move-ins for the hot mix is very expensive. So we want to get enough done to where we get the bang for the buck. One thing to note is we're doing a flexible section, and there's two kinds of pavement out there. There's a concrete section and an asphalt section. And briefly, a concrete section, when a tire or truck goes over it or a vehicle, that load is spread out along the concrete. On a flexible pavement, it's more of a point load. And there's some pros and cons, of course, with each one. Basically, the flexible pavement has layers in it, and the highest quality is at the surface. It, affects the deformation of the subgrade. It as you're going over the asphalt, that subgrade and that base is going to deform with it. And its stability is based on the aggregate, interlock, and the friction and the cohesion of the subgrade. It's one thing to note is all flexible pavements will crack, they'll move, they flex, and that's part of that design. A rigid pavement, on the other hand, is a concrete pavement. It'll bridge over a lot of those areas. It has its weaknesses. It cracks. It can fail catastrophically if there's water lines under it. But I just wanted to point those differences out, that's part of the maintenance program for flexible streets. The project estimate was $3.4 million. We received 3 bids: Brandon Paving, Lester Contracting, Tierra Lease. The contract time is 420 days, and we recommend award to Brandon Paving of Victoria, Texas.
Are those curbs in pretty good shape? in the
Yes, they are.
neighborhood?
There's a
Or
few,
snow?
it's not real bad. There's a few spots out there that we're gonna repair that are really low, or some curb, a little bit that's rolled back, but we've identified those scientifically by going out there after it rains and seeing where the water stands, and then marking
Good
that
way to
curb.
do it.
Yes.
Okay, any further questions or any further conversation? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of item E3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Item E4 is a professional services agreement with Arcadis US Incorporated for Phase 3 of the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Program in the amount of $245,948.
Move to accept item E4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept item E4.
Okay, I'm going to introduce our consultant, Charles Shaning, with Arcadis, who has worked with the city through the implementation of the ASR aquifer storage wells. It's a great project. We were on a cutting edge for ASR wells, and I'll let him kind of go over some of the technical aspects. Charles?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening to present about Victoria's Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project. I am Charles Schoening. I'm the principal in charge for Central and South Texas for the engineering consulting firm Arcadis. Very quickly, just some discussion items that I'll be talking about in this very quick presentation. If at any point you have a question, stop me and I can answer those questions for you. Just very quickly, and I don't want to bore anybody. I know we've been before the council in the past talking about aquifer storage and recovery. So I'll go through this very quickly. Aquifer storage and recovery is the storage of water in a suitable aquifer during times when the water is available so that it can then be pulled back out during times of need. Very simple diagram showing how this works. The ASR well, single well that we use to recharge the aquifer and also for recovering the water from the aquifer when it's needed. But essentially, there's native groundwater, there's a buffer zone that's created, and then a stored water zone within that aquifer layer. And so that entire buffer zone and the stored water is that target storage volume that we're seeking. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. ASR is not a new concept. There have been projects in the works since 1970, 3 of those prominent projects in Texas: El Paso, San Antonio, and Kerrville. But you can see since 1995, the interest in ASR has really ramped up, and there have been many ASR well fields that have been installed over the last 25, 30 years. So this project in particular was meant to do several things. Answer the specific technical questions related to converting one of the existing production wells, well 19, to an ASR well. Provide data about the ASR program expansion. Demonstrate that it is effective in this aquifer, specifically the Middle Gulf Coast aquifer. And to provide another tool or strategy for the city of Victoria to meet its water demands, specifically seasonal peaks, and then also annual water demand associated with expected growth. And so what this can do at build-out is defer the need for those very costly water treatment plant expansions till further in the future. So this all started with a Texas Water Development Board grant application. A few years ago, there were 6, and specifically the legislature set aside money in the budget for ASR feasibility studies. 6 applications were received, 3 were awarded, and those 3 you see here to the Edwards Aquifer Authority, Victoria County, and then Corpus Christi. This specific project is a partnership between the Victoria County GCD, the City of Victoria, and the Texas Water Development Board. And you can see that they funded essentially half of the feasibility project. So the feasibility study was done October 2014. It was completed. Again, 50% funded by TWDB, and found that the aquifer was viable for ASR here in Victoria. Recommended the demonstration program in the Gulf Coast aquifer, and it looked at, and one of the real positives or pros to this was that there was a lot of existing data from the 15 municipal wells in the Victoria area that could be looked at to determine what the productivity could be. So the ongoing status, we have obtained the TCEQ experimental permit. That is going to run out at the end of 2020. The rehabilitation of well 19 has been complete. The retrofit of well 19 to turn it into a recharge and recovery well has been complete. And the cycle testing has begun and is continuing. So in terms of the overall scope of work for this, we're looking now with this amendment to continue the cycle testing and do the assessment of that. There's going to be a blending study that's going to be required by the TCEQ in order to get that next permit. And essentially this is to make sure that the water that's being pulled back out is going to be compatible with the other water that's going into the distribution system. Sometimes when utilities add other water sources, it can be detrimental, similar to what we've all seen in Flint, Michigan. Don't want one of those situations. So that's why the TCEQ is very interested in making sure that blending studies are done, making sure that there's going to be no negative effects on distribution systems of adding additional water sources. This will also put us in place to get that permanent TCEQ operating permit, ASR operating permit, and then we'll also have the final reports and presentations back to you that will set you up then for design of the next well. The next ASR well is actually part of your 2021 CIP, and so I believe they're going to be coming back to you later to continue this program forward after this demonstration is done. And with that, I will answer any questions you might have about this.
I just want to quickly add too that following through with this was part of the 2035 comp plan as well. And so you may recall when we had our workshop in December, following through with focusing on ASR was probably one of the largest infrastructure-related projects that we've followed through on and staff has been working on. So I just want to throw that out there.
Any further questions? Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of item E4, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We'll now move into city manager reports. Mr. Garza?
All right, so the first one, you might have it shown as Chief Fox. Do you want to come up? I'm just kidding. So Chief Fox actually submitted the agenda item, but this is really a report by Emergency Management Coordinator. This is a time of year where we have different departments that come in and do their 2019 annual reports. And so today is the beginning of that. And so today you'll hear from Emergency Management as well as our Police Chief. And so first up is Rick.
Great. Thank you for having us. And City Manager, thank you for reaching out and allowing us to come and present this to the City Council, Mayor and City Council. This is our 2019 assessment of our emergency management program. We do this every year for the last couple of years. We usually present it to our command staff and let them know where we've been at and what we've been doing the last couple of years. Here with me is Jenna West, our Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator. Could not do much without Jenna being next to my side all the time. So we are pretty much involved in everything together. So anyways, I don't know who has got the slide presentation. So little overview of our program and what we do in the last year or so. 2019, we start off with, every year we start off with a vision. And 2019's vision was community preparedness. So how we got there was conduction of 5 presentations with 71 hours of contact, 19 different training classes that we held, 17 of those we also hosted, and conducted 3 exercises with those total number of contact hours there. We stay busy throughout the year, and I think everybody sees that with the different emails that we push out and the different training sessions we have and the courses that we hold. So some of the 2019 accomplishments that we have, you can see everything up there, is teaching at the incident command structure and also the NIMS and ICS courses that we do through our public and also through our normal city and county staff. We are consistently working with our different committees and working groups that we're on. We did a VPD and also VCSO mental health collaboration. We actually housed the mental health component within our EOC for about a year to meet some grant parameters that they had. We finished up our public assistance piece to the Hurricane Harvey through city and county, both, more specifically on the county side than anything else. We are also involved in the Mid-Coast Hurricane Disaster Conference every year. This past year was our 20th year. This year, we're coming up on the 21st year of that conference. We did a mitigation action plan update that includes some language actually about the ASR that you just now heard presentation about. Our consistent EMPG, which is Emergency Management Performance Grant that we hold every year and have held every year up through 13 years now. The COAD and long-term recovery. COAD is Community Organizations Active in Disaster. One of the things we learned out of Hurricane Harvey was we needed to strengthen that tie between our unmet needs community and also the members of our community that service those community members. And so the COAD and VOAD and long-term recovery has been really kicked off in high gear. Jenna has been instrumental in that process, redeveloping of the plans and engaging those community partners at the table now during recovery so we can make sure we're better prepared for the response next time. That was one of the lessons learned that we had. And so EOC reference guide we developed a couple of years ago as well and rolled that out into full swing last year. And then also the establishment of our EOC and our call bank procedures that we're going to use within the EOC itself. And so those are some of the highlights there. A couple of the events and different things that we go through, obviously you see up there as well. Severe weather events that we're constantly working. Boot Fest, we actually had the airplane accident from last year that we were involved in heavily. We're out there. We embarked upon a new campaign this past year, and I'm going to give a lot of the credit here to Jenna on the Victoria Ready Preparedness Campaign. It was something that we brought together with our first responder fields and our command staff field that we wanted to bring a new program to Victoria, and it was called Victoria Ready. And what that is was it gave us the components and the capabilities to allow our citizens a one-stop shop to be able to come in and have all the different entities and our first responding agencies teach a very specific topic, whether it was mental health, first aid, whether it was border ops and security, whether it was fire suppression, an active shooter. We were able to put that program on, and it ran for 6 weeks, and we did that through the summer months, not to conflict with some of the other organizations and committees that were out there. But it was a great success. We had a continuation of that, and we're going to have a continuation of that in the upcoming year. The Transcar LEPC, that was a very unique thing. There's a picture actually in the bottom left or on the bottom right. I mean, That is a actual Union Pacific rail car that was actually brought here in coordination with our office to allow first responders to actually have hands-on training on a rail car for a rail car incident. And so whereas we touched a variety of things, that was just one more success that we had. We consistently teach at the Victoria College Police Academy, and then we're also involved in what we call the HUREX, which is a statewide hurricane exercise that happens every year. We were involved in that last year in 2019. So accomplishments of each employee, we try to put some information in there. Myself, I did 12 professional courses last year, ran and helped organize the 3 exercises, and also attended 3 conferences and workshops. And with that, we bring back the information to our first responding bodies and how we better coordinate in a whole community approach. For Jenna, very similar, 12 professional courses. She did 5 exercises. She was actually promoted this past year in August in 2019. She was, before that, the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Coordinator that was located in our office. We're the only ones in the state that have that. And so Jenna was also involved in the 3 exercises we held in our office, but also 2 external exercises that she held and participated in throughout the state, and attended 4 conferences and workshops as well. The newest member to our team is Jessica Kamas. She's our EM specialist. Came on board in November, and so where she didn't have a lot of exercises or conference workshop experience, but she did get some of her 7 professional courses out of the way. So, and is moving down range with that. So, on top of that, 2020, what is our vision for the next upcoming years? Innovation. We want to continue the Victoria Ready campaign. It was such a great success that our team developed and the staff put on. We also want to restructure our EOC. We're going to do a philosophical realignment of what we're doing in the EOC, how we can better prepare for and things like that, and respond to with our not only our community members, but also our first responders. I'm sorry, one more time. Oh, yeah. Hurricane Preparedness Guide, one of the initiatives that Jenna wanted to bring on board was very similar to what our communities around us do. Corpus Christi, Houston, all do a hurricane preparedness guide where they print a local publication that actually can move out to the public to give them a little bit better understanding of what they need to do during severe weather events, very specifically hurricanes and the preparedness of those. So whereas we don't want to lose focus on that from being a couple of years ago, we understand as the time goes on, complacency will start to set in and people will start forgetting the past, which I don't think it's going to happen too soon for Hurricane Harvey. But iPause is an integrated public alert warning system. I'm bringing that here and working with our cell phone providers to where we can actually incorporate that into where we can push out alerts and warnings to our public in a very unique manner. And then obviously a continuation of the COAD and VOAD movement as well. And then obviously still strengthening our employees to continue their continuing education and being involved in things and bringing back that knowledge base to us in our program. So. With that said, I know there's a couple of notes we had made. This past year, we were engaged in some community or some statewide level and regional level initiatives and work groups with Jeannie Morrison and her staff. And so that happened last year as well. And so we're recognized throughout the state as being a very professional group. And I cannot be more proud of the staff that works with me and alongside of me because we do definitely make a great team. So. With that, I don't know if there's any other questions. Didn't want to make it too long. I didn't want to keep us here until 6 o'clock, and I don't want to take up Chief Craig's time, but, so any questions for us? Easy enough.
Thank you for your good work.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
very much.
Appreciate it.
I had sent him a list of 20 questions for him to prepare for.
Saving them for Chief Craig.
There you go. All right, Chief, whenever you're ready.
All right, I'm ready. Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Tonight, I bring to you the 2019 Annual Crime and Traffic Report. Basically an annual report for the police department. I'll talk about some of the benchmarks that we measure ourselves with. We'll talk about crime, and then we'll talk about some of the other things that are going on in the organization and the community that I believe you need to be aware of. So the first part, we're mindful of our mission statement to reduce crime and the fear of crime through outstanding police services in partnership with our community. Take that very serious. And, we're kind of in a position where we're modeling relational policing now, and that is, we want the public to know the officers and other employees that they might come in contact with. We want that interaction. So it's very important to us that we continue to be out there and portray that. One of the first things I want to talk about, and if you have the book, it's listed under the actual annual report's listed under some of my comments, but there are some key benchmarks that we pay particular attention to and we measure ourselves with, and measure ourselves with other agencies around. The first one is just total calls for service calls. You see in 2019, we responded or were involved in 93,487. That's down from 2018, where we had 95,000. And not just for the heck of it, 2017, we had 99,000. So we have seen a little bit of a decrease in that. The response time for priority one calls, this is very key. In my opinion, this is the average response time for an emergency priority one call, the most emergent type of call that you have in the city, and these are average response times. So most of the time they're below, but every now and then, you'll get a couple that are above. But we're tracking at 5.43 minutes, and that's very good. That compares that's excellent when compared to other agencies as well. So very good. In 2018, 6.22 minutes. We did see a reduction, and we attribute a lot of that reduction, some of it to a workload analysis. So we did a flow chart. We did a crash course in Lean, Six Sigma, which I'm still need to work on. But some of the workflow analysis that we used on that allowed us to cut some of the waste, and we recognized some of our opportunities to reduce some of that time. And we also didn't have the extreme number of vacancies in patrol that we had in some of the years past, and so I think that also contributed to it. Class 1 crime, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit more, but Class 1 crime decreased by 0.58% from 2018, and Class 2 crime increased by 17%, and we'll get into those numbers a little bit more within the presentation. As a reminder, we use National Incident-Based Reporting System, NIBRS, and that's important to know because a lot of police agencies still report crime to the state and to the FBI in UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting. There has been a push to move away from UCR and have everyone in the nation use NIBRS as a reporting system. In 2011, we were one of the few agencies at that stage to adopt this as our reporting incident system. Why that is important is not a lot of agencies still do, is it's the level of detail that's captured in the reporting. The biggest difference, like I said, is it really goes into greater detail in the reporting aspect of what's going on. We started it in 2011. We have 52 different classifications in NIBRS, whereas in UCR there's 12. And the easiest way for me to explain it is in UCR crime reporting, let's say that there's a burglary or a robbery, and there's also a shooting. Okay, in UCR, that's just a hierarchy. You take whatever the greatest offense is. In this case, let's say somebody was shot during a robbery, so maybe it's the aggravated assault that takes the higher pick. That's what you count. Okay. In NIBRS, we would count both. We would count the robbery and the assault. So it's a more thorough way of counting numbers. It gives you a real good idea of the crime that's going on within your community, as opposed to UCR, and they do an extrapolation formula for it. And there's a lot more slides on this, but that's the basic system. The message I want to convey to this body is that we're reporting things that are actually much more detailed than some agencies do. Jumping into the crime stats, these are Class 1 crimes. These are the Class 1 crimes that the state and the federal government want you to report. And those are crime categories of murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, theft, motor vehicle theft. And these are Class 1 crimes. As you can see, Just going line by line, we did see a decrease in homicides, rape, and a better description for rape would be sexual assault. Several years ago, they changed the definition of, but in Texas, it's sexual assault, but it's not changed nationwide yet, so you'll still see the word rape. But for our discussion, rape is sexual assault, and the difference is the old definition of rape was an encounter between a male and a female, unwanted sex forcibly, and sexual assault it categorizes as kids, unfortunate, crimes against children, any sex. So it picked up. So you'll see that over the years, those numbers they did go up. They tended to go up. A lot of that had to do with changing the definition of how that is captured. I can tell you in looking at those sexual assault numbers, one of the things that I'm particularly sensitive to is relationship of those types of crimes. And in most cases, in the 90%, there is some sort of a relationship between the victim and the perpetrator in those cases. And in like 5% of them, which doesn't sound like a lot, there was just absolutely no information whatsoever on it. We just had a victim come forward and claim that he or she was a victim of a sexual assault and didn't have any other information to that. So those numbers do jump in there. The other one that stands out to me, and I think it's significant, is obviously the aggravated assaults. You'll see that those numbers went up. And aggravated assaults from percentage change from 19 to 18 was about 13% increase. But if you look at the 5-year average, and I always put the 5-year average because I think it's important to get not just a comparison of what you did the prior year, but kind of what, I don't want to say what's normal, but what the trend is in the 5 years preceding that. And it was up 24%. Aggravated assaults have gone up. And I think that one of the things that I've even mentioned in here is we've made, in 2018, we saw a rash of significant shootings perpetrated by juvenile gang members. We made several arrests, and then in 19, a related group of juvenile gang members did the same thing to us. And we saw a huge rash of shootings again. These shootings were against other rival gang members and also into residences. So just to break those down further, and then those second parts of the arrest of those rash that we had, we made several arrests with those as well. Those have since trended way down into the end of 19 and the beginning of 20. We're not seeing those numbers. Like I said, January's numbers are about down by 25% just in that category alone. But aggravated assault family violence represented 26% of that number. Deadly conduct, and that is an individual that drives by and shoots into a dwelling of another, represented 22%. And all others could be a fight with a knife, could be an assault with a gun. Those types of weapons was 52%. Again, I attribute a lot of that to the family violence and also the problem that we were having in a couple of different phases during the end of 18 into 19 and end of 19 related to some of the crime that we saw related to juvenile gang members. And we have seen a decrease. Those have trended way down. There we go.
If you can ask a question,
Yes, sir.
in those aggravated, the rape or aggravated sexual assault, does that include the minors in our community?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Property crime, if you look at the trend in property crime, we were down slightly from the year before. Just a couple of notes that I found very interesting when you look at this is obviously our property crime is driven by, if you look at the pie chart, is driven by our theft numbers. A great deal of that is also shoplifting, but burglary of motor vehicles is captured in the theft category. And if you look at burglary of motor vehicles, which is always a challenge for us in our city, there were 458 of those. What I found interesting about this, and this is something, if it's predictable, it's preventable, 91% of those burglary motor vehicles, in 91% of those cases, the vehicle was left in an unsecure manner, meaning that they did not lock their car. And in almost 10% of those cases, whatever was taken was left in plain sight, whether it be, a purse, a gun. We have about 20 or 30 weapons that we have that are out there and about that were taken from some of those. So, my push is to continue to push that message out to the public that help us help you. And that is certainly one of those areas where very prime that if we had some assistance with some education, and we push it out continuously, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that that's still a big problem, and 91% is a pretty significant number. We start putting Class 1 and Class 2 crimes together. Well, before I do it, I'm gonna go to Class 2, and then we'll go up to the first slide there. Class 2 crimes, as you can see, those are lesser crimes not identified in Class 1. I think what's particularly noticeable here, and what I'll tell you is, if you take a look at Class 2 crimes, there are crimes within Class 2, in fact, a lot of them, where they are impacted by officer productivity. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the DWI section, you'll notice that we made 340 arrests for that offense that year. That's 340 crimes in the state of Texas. So it gets counted as an offense. If you go down to the drugs and narcotics, that was a significant increase over 2018, 791. Those are arrests. So even though it's an arrest, it's a measure of productivity. It gets counted as a crime in the state of Texas. So those numbers will go up. The more arrests you make, the more numbers those will go up. So all that said, you can see what the total percentages were there. And then when you add Class 1 and Class 2 crimes, and then you adjust for 100,000 residents, you can see the Class 1 and Class 2 crime rate, which is a question that sometimes people ask. I tend to focus more separating them out individually as opposed to looking at the crime rate per 100,000 residents, because it's just a statistical. You have to extrapolate the numbers to get those, and I look more at what the raw numbers are. But you can see that that's the comparison that we have to provide. There we go. Just arrests, just the number of arrests, adults. You see when we dipped down a little bit in 2018, but back up in 2019 for adults, 3,500. Juveniles tracking about 118 for a total of 3,700 in 2019. And then you see the comparisons for the prior years and where that stands, relatively similar. Looking at patrol specifically, what we saw is patrol had from between April and December, recovered a total of 62 guns. And then you can see the drugs that were recovered. They handled a total of 920 crashes and then 340 DWIs as previously mentioned. As far as traffic crashes, you can see that that's where we stand now. Traffic crashes are trending lower, which is a good thing. And I think this is an often overlooked but very important statistic and very important issue, because this is a social harm type of issue. This impacts our community in a lot of ways. These are crashes that involve our community members, our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, those guys. And so these do have a real impact on the social harm. The trend is down. I attribute that to a few things. One, we've leveraged and aggressively pursued STEP grants, which have helped provide officers working extra duty on overtime paid for by the state to focus in on high areas of problematic high areas with enforcement action. I also give some credit to the motorcycle unit that we implemented at the end of 2017 and into 2018. They've been highly effective in the enforcement aspect of reducing, or citations, I guess I should say, citations in areas where we've seen a lot of traffic collisions and fatalities. very proactive. And then also taking that one step further and also making it a goal and focus for the zone officer to pay more attention, particular attention in uncommitted patrol time, to actually focus some of their efforts into those areas where we see a lot of crashes and be proactive in addressing those infractions that they see.
Chief, really briefly, I want to add too that, we should also realize the correlation between the crashes and infrastructure investments. So something as simple as the medians on Navarro and so some of these safety-related projects that it would be interesting to kind of see when some of these safety projects went in and how that impacted the data. But that plays a role in that as well.
Well, I can tell you that I know, I don't have it in front of me now, but there is empirical data that shows that when you compare the crashes on Navarro North, where the medians are now, before they were there, and you compare them now, they're significantly lower. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I can tell you that did occur, so.
And it'd be interesting to see what the crashes are right now on the inside the loop on Navarro, which of course is going to get a median soon, which is only going to further
Yes,
lead to a decline in that.
yes. And I'm always interested in what the top crash associated factors are, and you can see we put those in numerical hierarchy. Failure to control speed or speeding is the number one cause of traffic collisions. And then there's a lot in the other section, and then fail to yield right away is pretty high, and then stop sign. So those are the offenses that we see the most that are causing most of the crashes. Next, I'd like to turn to our investigation unit, and I just kind of give you an idea, and this is new, I haven't brought this before, but I think it's important to kind of show what they're doing. Our investigation unit handles a lot of cases, a total of 7,574 for 2019, and then of those, there's some descriptions here that I'll go through so you can see kind of what's going on. But remember, we have like an assault unit, we have a property unit, we have a special crimes unit, we have an auto crimes unit, we have a burglary unit, and we have an officer that's assigned to the United States Marshals Task Force. And of that, like I said, we ended up having 7,574 cases. And of that, if you look at the status or the resolution of those cases, 33% of those, or 2,498 cases, were closed. Closed just means there was insufficient evidence, not enough leads to continue to investigate the case. Inactive was only about 302 total cases, 4% of the total, and that inactive refers to cases that we are waiting for lab results on. It's a drug case, it's a DUI case, and we submitted labs to DPS to perform those tests, and we still haven't got those back, and that number is represented there. Open, obviously open and ongoing cases. Exceptionally cleared, 10%, which is a total about 757 of those. And exceptionally cleared cases are cases where we know who the person is, we confirmed who that person is, we have reason to believe they committed that crime, and we're working towards, and we have presented that case, or will be presenting that case to the district attorney for filing considerations. Cleared by arrest is obvious. We made an arrest, and those cases are being processed to the district attorney's office. Inactive cases in the district attorney's office, about 17%. The district attorney is doing just a fabulous job, in my opinion, of eliminating some of the backlog. So I expect that number to continue to go down, but she inherited a pretty significant backlog, and so she's still working on that, but that's how many are inactive at this time. And then unfounded, pretty much what the word says, there's no basis in fact, there's no way to move forward with it. And then finally, warrant arrest. Any questions about those crime statistics? I'm going to jump into some other areas now. And one of the things that I really wanted to highlight is training. I'm very proud of the work that's being done by our training department. One of the things that you have to look at when it comes to training, and I think it's one of the strengths of this organization, quite frankly, if you look at over the years, we are a young organization, and so making sure that you have a very solid, comprehensive training program, ongoing training program is critical to help bridge that gap between officers that are still learning on the job and they're not tenured quite yet to the point where they will be in a few years. And this is a significant investment in our organization, in our people, in the safety of our people. And I think I've mentioned to you before, this is one of the areas where other police agencies have actually noticed that when our officers leave and go work for other agencies, they're impressed by the total number of hours that our officers get when it comes to training. So I think it's important, and we make it a priority. Just in the last 3 years, I took the liberty of looking at a couple of numbers, but in 2019, we had 11,590 hours of training. And then compare that to like 2017, we had 5,674. So we increased about 103% over those last couple, 2 or 3 years. Again, it's an investment well worth it. We see the return on investment, safety with our officers, safety with the public. Everyone benefits from this. And so I just wanted to point that out, that I think that this is a very positive thing that's going on right now in the organization. I might have the wrong order here. Let's see. Next, we got our community engagement unit, formerly known as our crime prevention unit, but they do so much more than that. Just looking at their statistics over the last year, they performed 30 different civilian response to active shooter courses, rape aggression defense courses, personal safety. They also managed our civilian police academy, which we do once a year. Just an outstanding job. Our media relations team is just that. They have really stepped up. They are really our go-to when it comes to spreading the message, the organization's message, and being responsive to the media. And they've done a great job as well. Like I said, one of the things that's important to us is we take a look at how we are from a relational policing standpoint. In relational policing, the opposite of that would be transactional policing. So we're more community-based, and we feel it's important that the community know the employees that are out there. And these are just a couple other, in addition to our officers, and a couple other areas. In 2019, we graduated the very first Explorer Academy, and so now we're on class number 2. It looks like they're getting some advice from the boss up there on the upper right-hand corner there. And another program we have is our VPD chaplain program. They volunteer countless hours with the intention of being there for our employees and being there for the community. They've been a great asset to us that we've been able to use several times in very sensitive type investigations. One of the units that we couldn't do without, that probably doesn't get mentioned a lot, is our Civilian Police Academy Alumni Association. This is probably some of the most dedicated individuals I've seen. They donate hundreds and hundreds of hours assisting us with events all the time, and so they have been outstanding when it comes to being part of the organization and helping in the community. And last year we did our very first youth camp. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We figured we're going to give it a try, and it was a major success. Our training unit put it on, and we had to turn people away pretty much. That we ended up getting that many folks that were interested in attending the event. So we're going to do it again this year, but it was a big success. And then finally, I couldn't be up here and talk about this if it wasn't for the work that's being done, and I'm very proud of the men and women of the Victoria Police Department and their continued commitment, day in, day out. Doesn't matter what's going on. They are out there serving the public, serving the community, and they do so with the honoring our department values of professionalism, integrity, respect, and pride in service. And like I said, I couldn't be more proud of the job they do each and every day. With that, I'll open it up if there's any additional questions that you might have.
Good job.
Very
For
good
your
job.
report, Chief.
Thank you.
I don't believe there's anything for executive session tonight.
No, sir, no need to meet.
Okay. So with that, we will adjourn.